My name is Ginny, also known as 2/3 Lotus, everywhere on the internet. This clip is part of my series, The Poets of Twitch, where I analyze my viewers' writing live on stream. Nothing has been edited out, so you're seeing this exactly as streamed with all of the imperfections and tangents that come with being live. If you want to catch me live or want more information, check out the description. Otherwise, enjoy some excellent writing.
Two poems by Shake underscore my underscore spear. I'll kind of do them one at a time, maybe. No one. You never know where things will go, or where in time they'll end, unless you try. A simple hi could make a faithful friend. No one. I'll just go back and forth between them actually as we go. And here's Shut In. She hides inside a frightened mouse, alone, unknown, her cage, her house. A world around her passing by, she never sees but can't deny. Her minutes pass like months or more, a lifetime locked behind a door. And who would know it's even there? And if it left, then who would care? Shut In. They do work very well together. Knowing, no one, talking about meeting people, shut in, talking about being shut in. There is a similarity between these poems, and there are, depending on what Shake My Spear wants, like, if these are good, if I like these, Shake My Spear very well could have like 3 short poems in the anthology, because they're all very short, but we'll see, as long as they're fine with that. Like, I would be open to something like that, but we'd have to decide. So here they are again. No one. You never know where things will go, or where in time they'll end, unless you try. A simple hi could make a faithful friend. You never know where things will go, or where in time they'll end, unless you try. A simple hi could make a faithful friend. No one. And Shut In. She hides inside a frightened mouse, alone, unknown, her cage, her house. A world around her passing by, she never sees but can't deny. Her minutes pass like months or more, a lifetime locked behind a door. And who would know it's even there? And if it left, then who would care? Shut In. It's almost like the first poem is first person and the second poem is the second person. And poem 2 predicts where in time it will end if you don't try. Poem 2 predicts where in time it will end. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, or where in time they'll end if you don't try. Yeah, that makes sense. So I like these. Let's talk about sound. You never know where things will go, or where in time they'll end, unless you try. A simple hi can make a faithful friend. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, where things will go. So we have like 4 syllables. And then we have, or where in time they'll end. 6 could make a faithful friend. 6. So that's some structure and sound we have going on. Rhyme scheme as well. And in friend. know and go, and try and high. So we have a cool kind of rhyme scheme here. Not one I've ever used. AAB, CCB is our rhyme scheme. And I actually like how this works in a lot of ways, just as a structure, because it really connects these two things together, of course, and gives the poem continuity, but it doesn't really feel like these are necessarily broken off from each other, because they do follow a similar structure of being rhyming couplets. So it makes the whole poem feel very cohesive, just one item. And I like that. The rhyme scheme makes it almost symmetrical. Yeah, or perhaps just less than symmetrical, just repeated, right? This, AAB, CCB, it's a couplet and a specific rhyme, a couplet and that same rhyme. But there is a sort of symmetry to that. You never know where things will go or where in time they'll end. Unless you try, a simple high could make a faithful friend. And we have some alliteration. Never know. Where will. Some repetition here. Or where in time they'll end. Unless you try, a simple high could make a faithful friend. Faithful friend. And Shake My Spear seems to do this often, just have a lot of little alliterative, assonant, rhyming things happening. There's probably many that I'm missing. There is a little bit of extra continuity added from an internal rhyme. Time to try and high. And this kind of branches, or like, yeah, it reaches across this sort of dividing line of symmetry. And this helps the poem feel very continuous as well. You never know where things will go or where in time they'll end unless you try a simple high. And like, or where in time. So in a sense, this is actually really cool. So we have 446, 446, but it happens to be, probably very intentionally, on syllable 4 of this line, it actually matches the rhyme scheme. So we could think of this internally as almost like a CCC rhyme scheme, even though this is also AABCCB. And that's really cool. I like that a lot. Where if this was all 4, you never know where things will go or where in time unless you try a simple high. It's not a perfect rhyme because time, try, high. It's a slight slant, but it still works really well to have that. Unfortunately, faithful doesn't keep this up in some way. That could be really cool. Or if there was in some way like a way that this connected into that line. But regardless, it definitely helps with that continuity. You never know where things will go or where in time they'll end unless you try a simple high could make a faithful friend. Make doesn't rhyme. Could. No. Shut-in's a little longer. Shake my spear. Oh, I didn't think you'd do this one. I didn't think I would either, because we've done a bunch of yours, but There aren't that many community poems in the queue, so we're just doing these two as your like alternates. And then there's maybe one Maytari poem that could be community. And then I'll make decisions on who's in the anthology. So Shut In also has some very I don't know. It is versed, it is metered. It is rhyming. She hides inside a frightened mouse, alone unknown, her cage her house. A world around her passing by, she never sees but can't deny. Her minutes pass like months or more, a lifetime locked behind a door, and who would know it's even there? And if it left, then who would care? So, mouse and house, buy and deny. More endure, therein care. These are our end rhymes, but there's some stuff happening internally as well. Hides inside happens right at the beginning. And then we also have alone unknown. This doesn't really keep up because world around, she never sees. Well, there's she and sees. So there's that as well. I've like used all the colors. She sees. Her minutes pass like months or more. Not any internal rhymes within this line itself. Her pass her like months, minutes, more. There's alliteration, we'll get to that. A lifetime locked, so we're like alliterating here as well. Lifetime locked behind. Lifetime locked behind. Assonant more so than rhyme. And who would know it's even there? And if it left, then who would care? So we have a slight shift to being slightly more alliterative as we go on. It's been a while since I've had a free viewers bot. It's funny. So in terms of alliteration, minutes, months, or more, lifetime locked, even sort of like who would, it's almost, and then if it, who would. That's a repetition. Who would know, who would care? And who would know it's even there, and if it left, then who would care? I like this actually a lot because we have this repetition, but it's placed in a different spot within the line, where if it was like, and who would know it's even there, and who would whatever, and who would something something care, it wouldn't work as well, I think, that repetition, because it's like the same thing in the same place. But I like that this one sort of tosses it further down the line. Stylish fail is lacking. How do I ban this person? She hides inside a frightful mouse, alone unknown. So we have like an alliteration of D. Duh. Hides inside. That's a rhyme, really. But we have alone unknown, her cage, her house, a world around her passing by she never sees but can't deny. So it is definitely... different. More internal rhymes here. More alliteration here. If you block stylish fail, that doesn't do anything. You have to ban or delete the message as a moderator. And those you can ban. So that's kind of what's happening sonically. AABB, CCDD. As our scheme with some internal rhymes scattered about, some alliteration, all of that. And so we can see two sort of different meanings just in the structure. This one just moves forward, in a sense. All this does is, here's like one rhyme, here's a new thing, here is C, here is D. It moves forward. It doesn't do a lot of calling back, at least in terms of sound. This one is much more interwoven, and this of course is going to be easier to accomplish in a smaller structure, because the bigger something gets, the more sort of unwieldy it is. That just the more you create, the harder it is to really concisely tie back in things that happen at the beginning to things at the end. And even as we get to like 8 lines, this is where stuff starts to get difficult in that regard. So as a general rule, like, the longer something gets usually means that it's going to get less sort of dense in terms of the way things connect to each other. Let's think about 3 lines. If we have 3 lines and we, graph them at points, each line has 2 other lines to connect to. And if they're all connected, then like the poem is very continuous. Everything weaves into each other. High caliber submissions are closed right now. If we have 4 lines, then if this line wants to connect to everything else in the poem, it has to connect to 3 other lines. This one, 1, 2, 3. This one, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So in total, there's, if we don't count like overlaps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 total connections, 3 total connections. Let's say we have 6 lines. Now, if we want our poem to be deeply interconnected, perfectly interconnected perhaps, then we are going to require a lot more connections. Did I miss any? What is 5? There's a actual function that graphs this number for. Anyway, so this is 6 lines. If we want them to each be connected, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, you know what it is? It's 5. It's 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. So now this has 15 ways that lines can connect to each other and combine. If we had a poem with 8 lines, the number is going to continue to go up. Which means a poem with 3 lines, if we want everything to be very interconnected and call back onto itself, we have a lot less work to do. And it means, like, kind of as a rule, a longer poem gets less dense because it just becomes so difficult to create this kind of condensed structure. So this one feels structurally more like a unit. Everything is connected. Even though we have this like symmetrical sort of separation, we have a thing to branch those. A lot of interconnection. You also have the issue of length. like, let's say there was some rhyme that rhymed maybe like the first line here to the last line. At a certain point, we run out of sort of sonic memory. We cannot remember the sounds. The longer a poem gets, the harder it's going to be to remember everything we have read. And so, if we are trying to rhyme, let's say, something here, something in line 1 with line 5, or line 1 with line 8, there's just going to be a much more difficult time actually having the reader get to that. And if we had like 20 lines, we can sort of just look at this as it gets very long. Having these connections come through becomes deeply difficult. Continuity, hard. And part of that is just the human limitation that we cannot go through as like analysts and manually check every possible connection happening in here. High Caliber. Yeah, submission is closed until I've announced the anthology acceptances. But if you want, I can make a new one. May take a while depending on where I give it a job. Oh, did the hack get lost? Okay, I'm going to run an ad now that we've talked about sound, and we'll come back and break down the meanings of these poems, which are both, of course, on the theme of communities. I'll be right back. Hi, little Sav. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back. I am still Ginny, still the poet of Twitch, and we are still reading 2 different poems at the same time, which we don't normally do, by Shake My Spear. And I'll read them again. First, how does one share a poem, Radiation King? So normally we have a submission form where you can just send your poems in, like a Google form, and I will read them on stream within the next week or so, depending on how many people are submitting. It is currently closed for a few days, not taking submissions for a few days. And this is because we just had a month where I was specifically taking submissions for the anthology of poetry that we're putting together as a stream, as a community, where we're going to be making I'm going to be making a zine with like poems from 10 people in chat and then publishing it and selling it. So in a few days, the form will open back up. Until then, you can mostly just watch the analysis of all of the wonderful poets that are currently in the submission. Oh, cool. Where can I get that? Yeah, you can check out in the Discord for updates on things. The, working on the anthology, all of that. But if you come in the Discord, if you hang out, you will certainly be kept up to date on all the things happening. Welcome in. It sounds like you're a poet, which is very exciting. We love poets here. So, very happy to have you, Radiation King. And here is No One by Shake My Spear. You never know where things will go or where in time they'll end, unless you try. A simple hi could make a faithful friend. No one. And we have shut in. She hides inside a frightened mouse, alone, unknown, her cage, her house. A world around her passing by. she never sees but can't deny. Her minutes pass like months or more, a lifetime locked behind a door. And who would know it's even there? And if it left, then who would care? Shut in. Shake My Spear, I really like how short your poems are. I like long poems for sure, but I really like short poems too. They are beautiful. Let's talk about meaning, since we talked about sound already. Meaning. What does it mean? So, they're pretty short, so it should be pretty quick to break down, although not always. So, you never know where things will go, or where in time they'll end, unless you try. So, something we often have to be careful about in looking at meaning, especially when there's a structure of sound, is not letting this sonic structure get in the way of the actual grammatical meaning of the poem. Because, or where in time they'll end, feels like a landing point, in a sense. You never know where things will go, or where in time they'll end. Especially when you have end, it really feels like this would be like the end of a sentence. But we don't have a period here, we don't have any punctuation, and then it goes to unless you try. So even though this is the start of a new sort of small section, it's a continuation of this sentence, which, to be fair, hey, you never know where the lines will end. Yeah, of course. And this actually has an advantage, though. Don't do coke. This has an advantage in the case of this poem, because we have this feeling of two sections, but it is actually by having the meaning branch over here that we continue to create a feeling of sort of constant connectiveness in the poem, which is nice. If there was, in fact, a period here where we might expect, sonically, it would make this poem feel very broken in half, two separate sections. But in this case, we're doing a lot that makes these two separate things actually feel like one. Maybe there's a little metaphor there. A little metaphor in the structure of this poem. I mean, it's about friendship. And what is that but two people who once, didn't know each other, were once in some way isolated from each other, becoming more connected, becoming more attached. So, it's just something to note. And it actually works really well in this case, but we just want to be careful that when we look at this, we don't say, oh, there is a feeling that I might pause here, so I'm going to pause. There's no period, so don't read the period. You never know where things will go or where in time they'll end unless you try. A simple hi could make a faithful friend. So the sentence is, you don't know where things will go or where they'll end unless you try. So the underlying thing is you have to try if you want things to happen. If you want to see where things go, if you want sort of action in your life, you have to try. And this is actually a very strong point in the poem, this line, because it's the beginning of this feeling of a section, but it's also pretty much dead in the middle. And the good thing about a short poem is we can argue that all of these lines are very important for different reasons. You never know. It's the first line. Of course this is important. The reader grasps onto it. Where things will go. it's the completion of the first couplet. That's an important line. Or where in time they'll end. It's now in the middle. It's the beginning of a new sort of structural theme, the 6-syllable line. And then the fourth line we could say is the beginning of a new section. We could say the fifth line is the completion of another couplet. And the last line is the last line. So we can really argue that all of the lines are very important structurally in their own right. When you look at a poem that has more like, 6 lines here, and then 4 more, and then a bunch more lines here, it's a little different. We can say maybe the first line is very important in this poem. The last line is very important. They hold a sort of special weight. Maybe some of the middle holds some weight just by being central to the poem. It's just an aesthetic tendency we make to place weight on certain spots. But in a very short poem, we don't really have this issue because all of these have their own reasons why we would consider them important. Short poems are awesome. Mookie MC, you're fixing some food and lurking, listening to get a feeling of the constant connection with the streamer and chat. I hope everyone is doing well. Glad to have you. Welcome in, Mookie MC. So here we have the intersection of meaning and structure actually having meaning with the poem, which is pretty cool. This connection throughout of multiple separate things, kind of like friendship, one could argue. And then the actual words are saying that you have to try. If you want to do anything, if you want to know anything, you're going to have to try. A simple hi, saying hi, could make a faithful friend. So story time, literally yesterday. So after therapy every day on Friday, I make my way down on my bicycle. I get on my bike and I go find some coffee shop to do some writing or reading in, or all that stuff. I get on my bike, I go. And I decided to go somewhere new. I went to like this boba place and I kind of pull up, go get my boba, and there's like one person working there and no one in the building. Super dead. Super nothing happening. I actually didn't get boba. I just got like a tea. It was this like lemon cucumber thing. It's really good. And no one's like working there. Or no, there is one. No one's there. There's someone working, but other than that, there's no one like really hanging out, doing much like, like what I'm doing. Sitting there, doing some writing, reading, getting stuff done. And the person at the counter, the employee, eventually like says hi, inquires on what I'm reading. It was Kant. And we end up having this like 2-hour conversation, I think, about various things. The book I'm reading, life, politics, philosophy, all of this. And it all started just because they said like the simple hi. Hey, what are you reading? And a lot of times, like, people are scared to do this because they're like, well, what if I say hi and they don't respond, or they say like hi and then this is the end of the conversation? What if that happens? What if the conversation dies? And usually my answer to this is like, if that is all that happens, like, what did you lose? First of all, you get the satisfaction of knowing that you had in some way the confidence to try to start a conversation. If it didn't happen, that's fine. But you get like this fulfillment, and all you lost was the amount of oxygen in like the word hi. Or I guess the exhalation of the carbon dioxide. So, meaning-wise, like, yeah, poem is absolutely true. Just say hi, it can make a faithful friend. I talked to this person for 2 hours. They're like, oh, I work there on Fridays. I'm like, cool, I'll come back. Maybe this person will turn into a friend. Maybe they won't, but it could. And this is kind of how life works. There's some requisite effort to actually meeting people and finding community. You are making Mookie MC chicken and a mushroom cream sauce with some green beans for color. That is excellent. The color being green. Having color in your food is good. The snow is fully melted. It's hope for the return of the grass and the green. There you go. Some manifestation. And this is something that, like, we're talking about the theme of communities. That's the anthology theme, as we know. Communities. And I think I see communities, like the way we can engage with them, in two main ways. We can be a part of community, or we can build community. Both of these are good. Being a part of community is going to that open mic if you're a poet. It can be being online in a community and just hanging out and interacting, being in a Discord server. It can be doing anything with a community you've already been part of for a while. That could be like continuing to go to a church or a religion. It could be playing D&D with the D&D group that you've been playing with for a while. This is all being part of community. Hanging out with your friends. None of this happens, though, if we don't build community. And that's the saying hi. It's the starting the D&D group. It's, even in a sense, building community can be taking a step to go be part of community. Or, rather than going to an open mic, starting a new one, hosting an open mic, so that other people have the opportunity to do their art. It's, starting a Twitch stream where people send you their work. This is building community. They're both good. This one, less people do. This one is probably more valuable. But both of these are going to be valuable to, yourself and be fulfilling and make you happy. So this poem kind of speaks to that, right? If you don't have community, and you do have to build it, if you have to find these friends, then it does take effort. Building. Taking a space where there is nothing and putting something on it. It's hard. And the poem title is kind of great. No one. Of course, the double meaning being no one, as in nobody. So if we know one person, then there is no longer no one, which makes this a great little double meaning. And usually all it takes to build community is knowing one person. Once you have this faithful friend, as you say, Mookie MC, a good foundation, this person probably has their own community. Communities, in particular. And then there's a chance that you will become part of those by a sort of osmosis. Or maybe you have some other communities that you end up going and building, and then they end up getting put into those. And it's everything from this individual level all the way up to, where things might go, the eventualities, and even the end of things. Things start, they end. It's a very encompassing poem. Beginnings, endings, not knowing, starting things, beginnings, possibility. This is my first time joining an online community, so I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, so in a sense, Stylish Fail, you are, yes, like part of the community. In our community, this is being in chat. This is being in the Discord. Like, it's just sort of existing. And actually, most of what this community kind of is, like most of what we do, is actually kind of building. I think like sharing your poetry is, in the context of this community, building it. This community like is sort of fundamentally built on the back of me having content so I can go live, so I can talk, so I can post things. And if you are sharing poetry, you're in some case building and broadening this community. If you're helping to give feedback, then you are building community by like helping others. And it's sort of being part. Stylish Fail, you've knitted people hats. That's definitely building community. You're a moderator, which means, of course, like you are helping this community function. Maybe there's like being a part, there's building, and then there's also like maintaining, where maybe like sharing the poetry, giving the feedback, being a moderator is somewhere in between. It's like sort of building because it's keeping the thing built, but it's more than being just a part and being around. And then building community is then also like bringing in friends to the community, like Arson Asher had done, sharing it with other people, making your own content around it, like the meme that I think Dickus Magnificus had made. That's building community. It's creating more. It's like generative. This is why I kind of chose this as a prompt for the anthology, because it's so broad. There are so many aspects to community, keeping it, building it, maintaining it, and then the kinds of communities we're in, identity, hobbies, religion, all this stuff, all communities. Y'all are talking a lot. The community aspects is always your favorite part of volunteer work. Yeah, you met great friends. Exactly. And that is, in a sense, like multiple things. You have the community of like the people you are volunteering with. You're being part of that community. But you're also in some way building community or giving back to the broader community that you're volunteering for. So these things can overlap in interesting ways. A poem is a building block. Yeah. I don't know those unspoken rules. Also, I'm autistic as fuck. Hell yeah. You're not supposed to talk about the unspoken rules. Don't talk about Fight Club. You should have told me not to do that? Well, no, because if they told you not to do that, then they'd be talking about the unspoken rules too. But local physical community is indispensable IMO. Yes, indispensable. That's correct. Maybe it's dispense with DIS. That is super crucial. And like all this online community stuff is great. But also do all of these things locally. I'm going to use an example. Drowning Devil used to hang out in chat. This was a chatter. Drowning Devil. You can still find some of their work on the YouTube. And they would talk about like living in sort of like a rural place and not really having like a lot of this community, not really like a queer community, being in like rural America, not really having like a writing poetic community. And basically my advice to them, if you can't find community that's already there, is then you absolutely have to be the one to take the step to build it. Because like, yeah, they were part of this online community and it's cool, but like they were not satisfied because they didn't have an in-person community. And I said, go build something, go start something, go talk to people about poetry. Yeah. All is forgiven, grin. You're actually an element of the community, and I'm the new one. I really want to get back into doing things in the community, but I don't really have energy. It is hard. But know that being part of the community can energize you, right? Damn right, you whippersnapper. Can't opt out of local community. True that. I mean, you can. Maybe this is like the next poem. Shut in. I mean, in some capacity, you have to go out of your room and like get groceries. But even now, like, it is actually really easy to not leave your room in modern society. So you're like laying in your bed. Let's say you have an apartment. You're in your bed, staring at the ceiling. Whatever. It's your shitty bed in your shitty apartment. You have a window, but you drew the curtains over it because you're depressed. This is pretty common. This is your life. And so you lay here and you're like, man, I'm so lonely. I'm not being part of my local community. And, well, you can go to your bathroom. It's like a room over. So you don't need to go out to do that. Let's say you need food. You used to have to like go somewhere to actually get food. Now you can just order it. You just have it delivered. Let's say your bed breaks and or maybe you need a new light bulb for your lamp, right? Your lamp is here and your lamp, the light bulb goes out. Okay, you can order that too. And that comes straight to your door. Kind of like all of these fundamental needs. I mean, you can work. You have to go out to work, right? You have to like do stuff. No. You can work remotely. You can stay in your room the whole time. And I don't know. Maybe this is like somehow appealing to some people, but like this is so fundamentally lonely. There's no in-person community. Even if you're shut in, you're still part of the community. Your presence, you're part of the social fabric. I mean, perhaps, but like you just exist as like a nebulous, maybe like person next door. And I don't think we really identify so much, at least in America, which is like being in the same location. It's pretty much dead to like know your neighbors. You would probably get weird looks. Like people might be like, why are you talking to me? If you're like, oh, hey, I'm your neighbor. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other. Because like we're not even used to doing this shit anymore. So even like presence, being in like the apartment next to someone else's apartment, is probably more divorced from being part of community than it ever has been. So this kind of sucks. Like, yes, we have some abstract social fabric, but fabric's looking pretty torn. This is coming from a former very problematic shut-in. Well, but you even say like former shut-in. Like it like there are people who live, right? There's the term hikikomori in Japan, hikikomori. and they have like a word for shut in, because there are people who won't leave their homes for like months, years, and really truly eliminate themselves from the social fabric. So if you're laying in bed, is it more dramatic to stare at the ceiling or stare at the wall? I say the wall because you're on your side and can be curled up. More visual to me. But perhaps not to others who can't visualize. So I find staring at the ceiling to be more dramatic as like a tool, like a narrative tool. I like staring at the ceiling because the ceiling is big. It gives a sense of like possibility that could be there but is not chased after. If I'm staring at the ceiling, I'm looking up into, what could be the sky and beautiful places, and instead it is just like blank ceiling. The ceiling is almost always going to be blank. The wall is more likely to be decorated. So I find the ceiling to be more like powerful as a term of like emptiness. But the wall, I agree, like the wall you can be curled up. And staring at the wall, especially if the wall is very close to you, that feels maybe more personal. Like this person is sad. I don't know though. Your tears can glide dramatically down your cheeks. There you go. Dramatic starfish pose, staring at the ceiling. I love doing that. If you curl up in a corner. True. I hate it when I'm proven wrong. Not proven, just ideas. There's probably other reasons why the wall is depressing too. The wall is more of a look forward, so perhaps that is a stifling or a non-engagement with the idea of moving forward into your life. Like staring at the ceiling is to be still and depressed against the cosmos, and to stare at the wall is to be still and depressed against the fabric of society and the pressures which attach themselves to living in a world of people. Symbols. That's symbol analysis, actually. Heed wisdom, child. You're super close to a wall, so you can really focus on the details. Yeah. I think if you're picking yourself apart, stare at a wall. If you're picking apart your place in the world, stare at a ceiling. So like this is literally symbol analysis. We take the idea staring at a wall versus staring at, this is actually like really good practice, the ceiling. And we just think about the action and we say, what is different about these two actions in an artistic sense? So what do we associate with staring at the wall? Well, the wall is maybe closer, right? If it's closer, we have more detail. Maybe the wall might be more decorated. To stare at the wall, we look more forward. To stare at the wall, we might be curled up. This isn't a metaphor, because staring at the wall isn't representing something else. We're just talking about the meaning behind it. Whereas staring at the ceiling is going to be sort of like distant, broad, cosmic, in the sense of like staring up into space. We might be laying splayed on our back. We might feel smaller compared to the ceiling. And in a sense, this is very subtle, the change. But if we're writing about someone contemplating their life, these are very different ways one might contemplate their life. And so actually, it becomes a relevant artistic choice to say whether you're staring at a wall or a ceiling. Can't walls also close you in? Yeah, the wall might feel more restrictive since it's horizontal motion that gets us places. Walls close us in, walls divide us. So maybe if our poem is contemplating their division from the world, then I would have them stare at a wall. if our if our poem is talking about maybe the division from maybe, I mean, let's just say God, right? This is a great actually symbol. We could use the ceiling because it's literally this man-made structure between me and the sky, between me and the cosmos, between me and the heavens. So that's an example of how symbol in very subtle ways is very important. If you are sad, turn away from the world and lie face down. Ooh, we didn't even talk about face down. Yeah. So face down. Now you are smothered. You are hiding. You are sort of blind to things. You can't see anything if you're face down. We might associate this with shame. Entirely different from a fetal position, staring into our knees. Or maybe we feel helpless. Literally fetal, referring to fetus, referring to like baby in womb. So maybe we feel helpless. We feel unsafe, fragile. It's relevant. This is why symbol's hard. We haven't talked about symbols on stream in a while. So maybe that's why it's coming out of me. Okay. Can walls close in? Especially if you're in a small bed. Yep. Oh, a poem about tossing and turning, discussing those different questions would be cool. It would be very cool. It's Saturday. I think Saturday is the day I do a new daily prompt for our stream. Maybe this will be the daily prompt or the weekly prompt. It'll be something along the lines of laying face down on side or on back. This goes to show how much the context matters. Absolutely. Is the bed big and clean, small and grubby, a lot of pillows and plushies, or just a ratty hoodie? Exactly. Like, now we're cooking. This is ideas. This is how you write poetry. And this is also why it's really fun. So, we're just going down tangents. It's really fun to play these games, especially in person. So, I've done this before with people. Go to like a coffee shop, go with a friend, and say, we're going to play some poetry games. And one could be a game like this. We say, sort of a playing with symbol. So we say, staring at the ceiling. Now, let's talk about what this means and sort of bounce off ideas in this very sort of fun back and forth way. But then it's like, okay, now let's change a part of it. Wall. How is this symbol different? How is being face down? Staring, well, what if we change that word from staring to gazing? Now we have something entirely different. We can have pondering. Now we have a slightly less, like, maybe negative connotation. We have, I don't know, like, and then you can just bounce around these different ideas like we're sort of doing in chat. What if your foot's on the headboard, one foot on the mattress? What if you're tossing and turning? What if you're, yeah, the pillows and plushies? Could we add our entries weekly to the submission form? Yeah, that'd be fine. So that's like a poetic game you can play. Another game I've played is you both choose an object in the room. You write a short poem about that object, and then you share them with each other, and then you try to guess what the other person wrote about. And ideally, I mean, this is kind of an analysis game, but the goal is to write something that they can get, because it's very satisfying for you both, but isn't too hard where they get it immediately. And this is actually a game that fundamentally trains you on like the specificity graph, how to draw it, where if you're too unspecific, and you kind of have to know the other person, how much are they able to analyze? If I write something, maybe their specificity graph is here, so I want to write something that's like maybe this specific, but with me, someone who analyzes a lot more, I can, my graph is going to look different. Something like that. So maybe you need to write like here, whatever. That's a game you can play. All sorts of things. Word association games, rhyming games. There's so many things you can do. These are fun. And these are best in person, admittedly, over a nice drink. Oh my gosh, we are scrawling on this one. Y'all got me having energy. Sounds fun? Yeah, they're all fun. This is why poet friends are a relevant thing to have. A relevant thing to have. They're good. And you teach each other. Or just literally sitting down and analyzing each other's poetry. Talking about it. That's just like writer's workshop type stuff. That's good for you too. Okay, enough of the poetry games. We've talked all about being a shut-in in one's room without actually talking about this poem. She hides inside a frightened mouse. Nice little metaphor. Alone, unknown, her cage, her house. It sounds dull. Oh, it does. Well, it's not. Maybe you're joking because we're sitting around analyzing poetry right now. Shit. The stream basically exists. Yeah, okay. Because I sat and analyzed a poem with my friend in college, and they enjoyed it so much that I wanted to keep sharing that with people. Her cage, her house. So this is almost what we were talking about with like the walls being this cage where you are looking at the walls and they separate you from the world. So this is kind of what we said. Like the wall keeps you away from the world. A world around her passing by she never sees but can't deny. Stylish fail, you said that you are fundamentally a part of the social fabric, of the fabric of community. And maybe that's what this line speaks to. She doesn't see what's happening out there, but she can never actually, but she can never deny that it does exist, that it is out there, and that it is something that she is actively rejecting. So, it's funny, we've already like talked about this whole poem. Her minutes pass like months or more. So this is like the profound boredom. Time moves really fast when you're enjoying time with people. This is like time flies. And she just lays here doing nothing. And it's empty and sad. A lifetime locked behind a door. And who would know it's even there? And if it left, then who would care? A lifetime. So who would know it's even there? It, the lifetime. If it left, who would care? So now we're talking like ending the life. And this is great as a look at community because it shows basically suicide and like depression, I think, as sort of the opposite on an axis from community. I feel strongly about this. I have found this, that it is those who are alone, it is those who do not understand and are not understood by others that think this way. That is why these people tend to be kind of sad. And so this is like really awesome. It's kind of funny because we were shown 3 different looks at community by Shake My Spear, and they're all sort of 3 parts of this spectrum. Being deeply fulfilled by friendship, having community, the creation of new friendship, somewhere in like the middle of this, and then being at the far end of entirely rejecting community. It makes this almost like a really good kind of triptych, basically. A triptych is 3 pieces of art put next to each other. This is one of my favorite art forms, like structures of art, is the triptych. I will walk into galleries if I'm at like an art place and be like, I will just look for things that look like this. I really like them. Because it can show things like 3 different parts of a dichotomy. Yes, I know, dichotomy too. It can show past, present, future, rule of 3s. We love this shit. At least in my deepest seclusion, I mainly wanted to remain anonymous. That was a while ago. Even if you are like the weird neighbor, you're still part of the neighborhood. Absolutely. Oh yeah, my solitude came from deep depression, also exacerbated by depression. Yeah, they feed into each other. They do this thing where the more depressed you are, the more you isolate, the more you isolate, the more depressed you get. And then you're just miserable. So it's like really cool how we have these 3 looks at communities. And like maybe these are kind of meaning light. You know, she hides frightened from the world. But like this has some really like deeply powerful and insightful lines in it. I think Can't Deny might be like my favorite part of this poem because it says that it's there, that the community is there, she knows it's there, and has chosen to reject it. And that's a really powerful sentiment. And that, like, without this line, or without even these 2 words, this poem doesn't feel like it relates to the theme of communities. Because then it's just talking about being depressed and hiding away from the world, and then like wanting to die. But this says, even amongst that, she is aware of this thing, communities, which is like based. God, what a word. Oh yeah, it's great word choice, Can't Deny. For sure. Very powerful. Love that phrase. Her minutes pass like months or more. And I really like this, talking about time, because time is sort of something everyone experiences. And when your minutes and your life feels even like temporally separated from others, it feels very isolating. People seem to be living and doing and have these fast lives and busy days. And when you're alone, it's almost more isolating this fact. Kant, Immanuel Kant, he talks about these things called transcendentals, or like transcendental ideas, transcendent ideas. And one of them is time, as far as I'm aware. That time is fundamental to experience in some capacity, and everyone like has this experience of time to live. But if even our perception of time is skewed, if we have, if our clocks are melting off of things, perhaps, great art, by the way, the melting clocks, then like this is a very powerful symbol of not understanding the world. Isn't a dichotomy of three a trichotomy? Well, a dichotomy is two things that are fundamentally opposed. The issue of the dichotomy is that they are almost always false, in that there is usually some way to reject the entire structure and go outside of it, or find some alternative to the proposed dichotomy. I don't really know if trichotomy is technically something, but the issue is that no matter what, these claim to be absolute, and usually they're outside ideas. The fundamental one just being to reject the dichotomy, creating a third option. I think it's D as in between, like, dichotomy is referring to like two ends of things. And dialogue is referring to two people speaking. Like dialogue is like two thoughts. Discourse is I think slash fail, you're just failing to see how, yeah, I mean, you say like no, two people specifically in discourse, so that is die being two. Now it also doesn't work to have like triscourse for three or trialogue. Actually, so if you have a book, this is what we need in books, okay? If we want to modernize reading and we want to get on the same level as video games, right? We should take books and we should put various parts of the books behind like microtransactions and paywalls, right? So you're reading, and you have a bunch of prose in the book. And then you get to a section of dialogue, and it's like, okay, you can read this section for free as your sample dialogue. And then we go back to prose, right? And then they say, like, here's some more dialogue. If you want to keep reading, you're going to have a, get yourself a free trialogue and put in your credit card information. And then when that expires, you'll be paying for your dialogue. All of that was just to set up for trialogue, free trialogue. That was a terrible joke. Die is Greek for two, die is Latin for part. Yeah, which I mean, like, basically that's the same. Yeah, like there's two meanings, but they're like used. Conversation between two bi people, call that dialogue. Hey. For example, dissect is from Latin and it means to cut apart, not to cut in two. Oh, okay. Listen, someone is dying on this hill and it's not going to be me. Now you're just being silly, lol. Yeah, I am being silly. Okay, that actually makes sense. Discourse, ideas that are apart. But dialogue might be. Because that's like logos, which is definitely Greek. Well, let's not. Let's not. This is one of the more distracted analyses lately. But these are fun. The poems are pretty light, so this is another good thing. Somehow the short poems always are the ones that give you a lot of outside things to talk about because they're very dense and like whatever. So they have like a very specific idea, and then usually we can talk about a lot of things outside of them. Short poems are nice. Big poems, you have to like spend so much time to actually talk about the poem. Where the short poem, you get to talk about everything else, and then it informs your idea of the poem. Dialogue. Literary work consisting of conversation between two or more persons from Old French dialogue to Latin dialogue from Greek. Wait. So it's from Latin and Greek. Conversation, dialogue. Oh, it's legain, not logos. Clever. Etymology is very hard, especially in English. Yeah, no, it's not a fallacy to consult a dictionary when I am not an etymology person. We can also disprove that dialogue is exclusive to two people, the fact that we're all engaging in dialogue. You know, it's not the point of disproving that it's limited to two. It's the question of whether it originates from the idea of two people, like philosophers walking and talking. Yes, dialogue is not two. That doesn't mean it can't come from the word two. And that's why etymology is extra difficult sometimes, because things don't always reflect now the words they came from, which is wild too. There were probably questions in the submission form on these poems that... Does the personification of lifetime in the last two lines make sense? Well, I got it. Should I just change it to she? If it ended, who would care? More powerful than if it left. So we have if it ended versus if it left. Well, so if it left, actually I like, right? Because there's two meanings here. There's a double meaning, which is really cool. So a lifetime locked behind a door. If the lifetime left, who would care? Right? If it actually left the door, then sure. Maybe it can. This person knows they can leave. But who would actually care? Even if I went out and joined community. Double meaning, if life left, in the sense of being dead, then double meaning, like, now we have double meaning, that's really cool. Who would care if I'm dead? Who would care if I left the room? Thus I remain in stasis. Versus, if it ended, who would care? There's really only one meaning, and that's life ending. So I like left here. And the personification is fine. I grasped it. It takes a second to be like, oh wait, it, what is it referring to? But subject, a lifetime locked behind a door, and who would care? Or who would know if it's there? It's the same sentence. It points to the subject. You're fine. Pronouns, they work fine. So, like, this is good. And left is very important, I think, because of the double meaning. So we'll keep it at that. Um, and I'll talk about maybe the other questions on the other poem and other thoughts after a short ad break, because we've just been yapping away. I'll be back. Self-care, water, bathroom, meds, get a comfy sweater, get a beverage. I'll be back. Look at this. It's Ginny. That's me. All right. Hello, hello. Trichotomy refers to a division into three parts, elements, or classes. It can be used in various contexts. Thought structure, theological descriptions. Yeah. Also as triads, trinities. Quadrinity is a word too. Like a trinity, but four. I left for Prague, partly to be forgotten, and anonymously when I did end it. That's very poetic. Imagine that as the first line of a novel. I left for Prague, partly to be forgotten, and anonymous when I did end it. And what? Oh my gosh, what? Oh, Prague, we're going somewhere. Like, what a great beginning. Just to be clear, that was a bad idea. Also, I did not end it. Good. Hi, Mantle Merchant. Frost Mantle is here now. Okay. Joined a clan that made me add frosts. Okay. Getting ads for air sanitizers in deodorant. Fairly Twitch feels like me and my home stink. Well, we're talking about being a shut-in in one's room. And of course, Twitch is probably fast enough to listen to the content on stream and then make targeted ads based on what we read. Probably not yet, but that is probably something that will be happening very soon. Targeted ads based on what is happening in stream. The scary thing with advertising is when the companies start to watch your behavior and then start making AI generated ads tailored exactly to your like data and browsing preferences to maximize the possibility of you clicking on them. We are slaves in an attention economy, and I can talk about this for a long time. Here is no one. You never know where things will go or where in time they'll end unless you try. A simple hi could make a faithful friend. Shut in. She hides inside a frightened mouse, alone unknown, her cage her house, a world around her passing by, she never sees but can't deny. Her minutes pass like months or more, a lifetime locked behind a door, and who would know it's even there, and if it left then who would care? Shut in. It's the gamer stereotype, yeah. Like that apocryphal story of the father who learned his daughter was pregnant because of ads. Like there were a lot of ads about pregnancy specific products. Oh, I see. Yeah. Why are there so many pregnancy ads? It hasn't figured out we're poets, who are known for their immaculate hygiene. True. Poets have perfect hygiene, incredible appearance, are extraordinarily humble, always deeply caring for others, generally just the best people in the world, creative, charismatic. Lol, maybe it just runs hygiene ads on any channel tagged with gaming or viewers that follow. It runs them probably on Twitch. So, you had some questions, Shake My Spear. I know we've sort of been talking around the poems, but I think we've also like talked about them in some capacity. We've definitely talked about communities. Is this too corny? And these are both alternatives for the poem submission. Feel free to put the poem way on the back burner. Meant as a very simple, straightforward, feel-good poem. And then this one, last community alternative. So, is this too corny? No one. I mean, like, so meaning-wise, it's like sort of, maybe, straightforward. If you don't say hi to people, you're not going to make friends. Like, that's what this poem says, right? Yeah, the poem is not on the back burner. But I think the structural choices, the sound choices that we make, like, here's the thing. So, poems. Oh my gosh, we have so many pages on this one. This might be the longest in terms of pages analysis. Sound. Meaning. Y'all. Sometimes the handwriting gets a little too lazy. This is me writing meaning. Structure. So, the triangle of art, the triangle of poetry, the trinity, hold on, wait, the trichotomy. Although not actually, because a trichotomy, like, often implies some separation. This is a trinity. And it's actually very much like the, like, Christian religious trinity, because these are all unique items, and they are all one and the same as poetry, or as God. But you see, so we have, like father. No, father is definitely structure. We have Father, we have Son, and we have Holy Spirit. You see? It's like Christianity. So, point of this. If we have really great structure and sound as as in no one. We talked about structure and sound for like a while. We can, all the way back down to the bottom, have meaning that is maybe even more corny. This doesn't relate to the Christianity part. So, now granted, what we would call maybe like the complete poem uses all of these. And it's not that even the meaning of your poem is entirely corny. Like, yes, it's maybe simple, but it also offers some insights, especially alongside the other poem, on like community. And the structure and sound, as we talked about at the very start, you might need to rewatch it, Shake My Spear, actually in some way reflected some meaning about friendship and community. And if you do these things really well, or accidentally, you can create meaning by not actually doing that much on meaning. And then this looks a lot better. The Father gave structure by creating the universe. The Son gave meaning through the New Testament. The Holy Ghost says boo, which is a sound. Exactly. This should be an emote. This probably should be an emote. I don't know how to like condense it because emotes are very small. Regardless, y'all can figure it out. Y'all can like send me things if you're artists and want to make emotes. I can't really compensate you, but if you have ideas, that's building community. It could be split into 3 emotes, and they could be like stylized: sound, structure, meaning. That'd be really fun. So anyway, looking at this poem, you never know where things will go or where in time they'll end unless you try. Like, this poem does a really cool structural thing. End. It feels like the end. Unless you try. We move forward. It's this feeling of motion. It's this connectedness. It's this bringing together of 2 things. It's the essence of friendship. So, like, yeah, maybe a poem about friendship is kind of corny. But is a poem that describes friendship as well as this one corny? Like, maybe not. I don't know. You've never made emotes? Yeah, I've only made 2. All you have to do is have a square image that scales down well. So, like, no, not corny. I also find that it's just really hard for a sonnet, or, sorry, not a sonnet, a verse poem to sound corny. Like, here's the thing, right? Usually something is corny, as I said, because meaning is lacking. It's not particularly profound, no profundity, and this means we're like pretty lacking in one thing. But if we compensate in these ways, if we have a well-written verse poem that does sound and structural things, you can put absolute nonsense inside of it, and there's still some kind of appreciable stuff. New poetry prompt: make the corniest, most saccharine poem you can. So next Saturday is February 8th, which means the Friday after that is February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. Next week's poetry prompt could be write the corniest, sappiest, saccharine love poem you can for Valentine's Day. That would be really fun. And then by the end of the week, by Valentine's Day, we would have a bunch of really corny Valentine's poems. We'll do that. Oh, actually, that's unintentionally relevant. What does that even mean? Oh, that was my shoulder. It's like popped out of place. I mean to Valentine's. Oh, I see, yeah. I know a lot of limericks like that. There you go. Okay, so point of this poem. Like, I like them. Jenny, how much to do the winning entry in calligraphy? My calligraphy's not that good. Send it to Mia. Really gotta collaborate with Mia. Mia the calligrapher. Great streamer. Go follow them. That was not my question. Oh, cause you want your love poem written by hand by your favorite streamer. I'm joking. um, that was not the question. You know, I don't like winning. I don't like competition. But maybe if I'm suitably overcome by passion and emotion by one of these poems, I'll just be compelled to write it out in calligraphy. We'll discuss later. We'll discuss next week. It would be fun. I do like it. Maybe not a raffle, but I'll just choose a few. For various reasons, not necessarily quality. I mean, I guess I can just judge them on sappiness. Were there other questions? No. Does anyone have questions and comments for Shake My Spear on this? What is the cover of the zine? So, it is going to be a combination, like a big mosaic of all of the doodles from the analysis. So, like, there will definitely be, like, the goose that I drew a few days ago. Like, this guy. That's going to be somewhere on the cover. I might do like redraws, so I might like redraw the mountain. I've drawn Sisyphus going up the mountain a lot, so we might do that. Just so many things. All sorts of doodles. And it's all going to take up the whole thing and it'll be in all different colors, just like the analysis. They were submitted separately. I presume these aren't meant to be like read together, but I wrote them back to back last night, so they're definitely related, but not necessarily intentionally. Yeah. Yeah. I have a question. Shake My Spear. If I do happen to accept your work, would you be open, since these are like you've sent 3 short poems, to potentially having multiple poems sort of as your poem if you are to be selected in such an anthology? Because, for example, like Penguino Man, who's fairly likely, wrote like Kampong Long Kong, which is like a real chonker, you know? Many refuse I want. Okay. Well, we'll have to see. I did say I like a good triptych. Central spread, 3 poems across. That'd be pretty sexy. So, you like it slash fail, they all work together. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I guess I'll read them again. Not like my normal analysis, because it was 2 at the same time, and we talked more thematically, but I think this was fun. I hope this helped. No one. You never know where things will go or where in time they'll end. Unless you try, a simple hi could make a faithful friend. Some good suspense. Some good suspense there. Shut in. She hides inside a frightened mouse, alone, unknown, her cage, her house. A world around her passing by she never sees but can't deny. Her minutes pass like months or more, a lifetime locked behind a door. And who would know it's even there? And if it left, then who would care? Thank you so much for submitting. Shake My Spear. Voltarine. You always school us in verse and meter. Really excellent.
Thank you for watching. I encourage you to check out the rest of the series, follow if you enjoyed, and stop by Twitch if you want to share your own work. See you there.